Buenas tardes. There are not two Bill Martins. There's only one Bill Martin. That's not me. Who are you?
I'm Fredrik Hoper from Sweden, and I would like to say Arazaldeon and Buenas tardes. In Basque and in Spanish, I hope. And welcome to you, English-speaking people. We are very honored to be here today to talk about leadership. And I'm honored to do that with my friend Bill Martin. And I have worked for 26 years as a principal and a development manager in Sweden. So I think I have run the hard way of leadership, and I've run a long journey which we will be talking about today. But first, Bill, you talk about who you are for those who don't know you.
You're like my youngest son, Frederick, because as I explained the other day in a presentation, I started school when I was 6. And I've been in school ever since. I'm 72 years old this year, so I've been in school for 66 years. 51 of those years was as a primary teacher in a secondary school principal in the United States of America. And then for the last 15 years, I've spent in 20 countries working and observing schools as they try to deliver the best results for their children, their staff, and their communities. It's been quite a journey. As we've observed schools around the world, we realize there are many, many challenges that leaders must meet. And the first challenge of all is to choose to be a leader in a world that wants you to be a manager. Most education systems I've worked in around the world are top-down management systems where they tell people what to do, when to do it. You can be a manager in that system and have a very, very, very long career. But Frederick and I are two men from two different countries, two very different cultures, two very different languages, who've grown to be really, really great friends because we're in love with one wonderfully complex, complicated piece of music. And that music is leadership. That music is leadership. We're finding out as we travel around the world, leadership becomes rarer and rarer in a system that wants to tell you what to do every day. So choosing to lead is an essential first challenge for anybody who wants to engage in the practice of leadership. This afternoon, Frederick and I want to share with you a couple of the challenges we have observed in schools around the world when people choose to lead. Everyone in this room is a leader, even if the only person you lead is yourself. We've heard a lot of conversation over the week about mental models, the values and beliefs that drive our behavior. Well, my values and beliefs drive my behavior, and as I lead myself, they follow me everywhere I go, for good and for bad. I have many values and beliefs, and I've been a very flawed man throughout my life. So leading myself is a huge challenge. As soon as you become principal of a school, the challenge gets more enormous. Because what happens in many schools around the world is the school community takes on the values and beliefs of the leader of that school. And that's the way it is. So we need to think very, very seriously when we go into school every day about who we are as a leader. It's an inward journey everyone goes on for their lifetime. I'm still trying to discover who I am as a leader at 72 years old. It's been a journey of a lifetime for me. The best description of this journey comes from a book that is many, many decades old. It's The Velveteen Rabbit by Marjorie Williams. I would like to share with you a portion of that story while you close your eyes and you think about what I'm saying. In this part of the book, there are two toy animals in a nursery, an old skin horse and a new rabbit. And they're talking about what it means to be real. Close your eyes and listen. "What is real?" asked the rabbit one day as they were laying side by side in the nursery. "Does it mean having things inside and a stick-out handle?" "Real isn't how you're made," said the skin horse. "It's a thing that happens to you. When a child loves you for a long, long time, not just to play with, but really loves you, then you become real." "Does it hurt?" asked the rabbit. "Sometimes," the horse replied, for he is always truthful. "When you're real, though, you don't mind being hurt once in a while." "Does it happen all at once, like being wound up bit by bit?" "It doesn't happen all at once. You become. It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't happen to people who break easily or have sharp edges or have to be carefully kept. Generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair has been loved off, and your eyes may drop out, and you get loose in the joints and very shabby. But these things don't matter at all, because once you are real, you can't be ugly, except to people who don't understand. Every one of us goes on an inward journey to develop the real you. I cannot speak this man's language, and he's frightened to death today of speaking English to you. But we have become fast friends because he has discovered his realness. As soon as you get to know Frederick, you discover that he's authentic. What he says is the truth as he knows it. He's humble and giving, and he's very, very courageous. But courage didn't come to him easily in understanding who he is as he leads other people.
Thank you for that, Bill. Well, I tell you my story about my inwards journey, which made me see how hard it is to change. I took this challenge in 1987 to apply to a deputy principal on my school for my own colleagues, so to say. I didn't know by then how stupid I really was, but okay, I started that journey. And in the beginning, my wife told me, "Fredrik, this will be hard." "Oh no," I said. "Those were my colleagues, those were my friends. We had fun together. They will support me." And in the beginning, of course, they supported me because I was stupid enough to just make most of the decisions which went in their way. But after a while, I understood that was not my mission as a principal, even as a deputy. I had to look for what's best for the school, what's best for the kids. And that, my friends, isn't always the best for the adults, for the teachers. So I had to do a long inner journey to get rid of fear, to get rid of not taking the right decisions. And it took me a long time. It took me about 4 years. I'm a slow learner, I know that, but after 4 years, it was one special occasion when I knew, wow, now I am their leader. Now I make my decisions as a principal. Because 2 years after I started as a deputy, I applied for a principal for the school and became principal. So, after 4 years, in my hard inner journey, which I really struggled with myself, one of my former teacher colleagues and friend, an informal leader, you know what informal leader is? He wanted to make the decisions for his colleagues and even make my decisions. He came up to me in my office. It was in May, and I was working with the schedules for the teachers in the primary part of the school. It was a school from year 1 to year 9, so it was kids from 7 to 15. And he rushed into my room and put a paper on my desk and said, "Fredrik, what is this?" I looked up and said, "What do you mean?" "Well, that's a schedule you have done for the next school year, and I'm supposed to stop my teaching and learning 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon. I won't do that. I've always stopped my teaching and learning by 11:30 or 12 o'clock. "What do you mean?" I said. You know that we have trouble with the students Friday afternoon because we don't have enough teachers staying in school, and there's chaos. We have talked about that. You are one of the best teachers we have, and you say you won't work for the kids Friday afternoon because you're not used to. No, I won't do that. But Lars, I said, I'm your principal, and I work for the best for the kids, for teaching and learning, and that they really should reach their goals, and that they really, really should have the best days of teaching and learning in school. And we all know Friday afternoon is important for them before the weekend. And now I have decided that you and your colleagues should stay 2 hours later. I won't accept that. "Oh, you have to," he said. "I have to." "You have to," I said. Well, he went angry, got out, slammed the door, always in my face. And from that time, he was, would say, my component. He didn't like me. He didn't like my decisions. But I was comfortable because I had did my long journey over 4 years to really have the courage to make the decisions that the school needed. And I was proud of myself that I now have taken another step on the ladder of growth in leadership. But it took me 4 years, long time. But as a slow learner, when you have learned, you grow more than that.
Every one of us goes on that journey to discover who we are. And if you have a leadership position in a school, the first essential challenge is know who the real you is. Often all I needed to do to see the most dangerous man in my school in keeping us from improving and changing was to go home and look in the mirror at night and see the face staring back at me. It's essential that you know who the real you is. We're going to give you some minutes to talk about that with a neighbor. In your role, whether you lead yourself or hundreds of people or lead a school, who is the real you that the people you lead are demonstrating the same behaviors as they perform their duties every day? What values and beliefs, what mental models make up the real you that are driving the performance of the people you lead? Have a chat about that for a couple minutes.
Put this up in there. Okay.
I'll let you handle this.
Right.
Oh, no, I'll use it for a while yet. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Another challenge of leadership that must be met to become a school that delivers is that the leader must be the culture builder and caretaker of the school. In my schools, when I was principal, when you would look in the staff manual of roles and responsibilities, the very, very, very first responsibility next to my name was culture builder and culture caretaker. That was my job. That was my responsibility, a huge leadership responsibility. I would have to know what elements of culture we would use to build our culture. And it's interesting when you travel around the world and talk about culture to people in education. They know it's there, but it's foggy, it's misty. It's like we can't quite put a finger on it. But I'll tell you something, as soon as somebody walks into your school, they can smell and feel and taste the culture. Several years ago, I was working with 2 schools in Western Australia in the same week. One morning, I drove out to the first school and drove up over a hill and looked down into this little valley, and I saw the most magnificent-looking school campus I think I've ever seen. As I started driving down the hill to get closer to the school, I began to see that the school was very old and shabby and broken down. The outside lawns and gardens were unkempt, and there was trash strewn all around. And when I got into the staff parking lot and started walking in, I saw that there were big holes in sidewalks and cracks. It was a school that had not been cared for a long, long time. So I walked into the reception room of that school, and the receptionist said, "Sign in, take a name tag, sit down, the principal will be with you shortly." So I sit down in the reception area, while probably 5 staff members walked by me, didn't acknowledge my presence, didn't say hello, didn't wonder if I was a stranger or not. They just walked by and went about their business. And I happened to notice up on the wall a plaque that said they'd had 8 different principals in the last 10 years. And then the principal came and took me into his staff meeting room where they did all their professional development. And it was like going into a basement that no one had looked at or organized things for years. It was full of clutter. And this was that man's teaching space. This room of clutter that you wouldn't even want a child to be a part of, and call it a learning space. And then the staff came in, and I looked at them, and what I saw were 70 really, really good people, absolutely out of hope. And their culture, the culture told that story of being out of hope. Later in the week, I went to the other school, which was about 100 kilometers away. And as I parked my car and walked into the reception area, the principal came running out of his office and greeted me with a big smile and hug. "Oh, I'm glad you're here. Let me take you, show you my campus. Let me show you my school." So he took me out into the corridors and then out into the outdoor play spaces of the school. And as I walked the corridors, I saw teachers' pictures on the door of their classroom. Their pictures were hung up, and next to it was their personal philosophy for teaching and learning. Anyone who'd walk into that classroom would know what they're getting into with that teacher, because the door spoke to them. And then we went outside, and the kids were running up to him. Every child in the school was running up and wanted to tell him how his day was going, and staff accosted us as we went. Later on, when I went with the staff, to work with the staff, I saw a staff of really, really good people, full of hope. Leaders are responsible for that hope or hopelessness. It's your responsibility to build and take care of culture. And you should have an action plan to do it. As I've talked with Frederick, I've come to understand that when he was a principal, these were the elements of culture for him in his school. These were the elements that he led. He took action to make sure they were a part of the daily life of the school. He built the culture around these elements, and then he forever took care of them. And as I talk with people who work with Frederick over the years, they tell me how trustworthy he is. I've come to find out since 2007, since we started our friendship, the man exudes trustworthiness. I'd trust him with anything. I would trust him with absolutely anything. And he didn't come by the element of trust by accident, did you?
No, that's a long journey, that too, but I have an example to give you how I really learned how important it is to build trust instead of mistrusting people. My first job as a teacher in 1976 was at the youth prison, we call it in Sweden. There were young people, the youngest was only 13, and the eldest one was 19. So they were there because they had done a lot of crimes. They had homes that didn't function, and all right. The youth prison in Sweden are almost open, but they have closed sections too. And my work as a teacher there was to make those young boys interested to learn again, because they haven't been in the schools that much. And in the best of case, they could graduate. But I just succeeded to graduate one of all these kids in 4 years I worked there. By the way, there were 4 kids at the closed section who came to me each day. They were allowed to go to school, but otherwise they had to be in the closed section because they did some awful things when they were on free time on weekends. So school was allowed to go to. But there wasn't much teaching and learning in that way you think of going on the first month, because I wanted to know who those guys were and what was behind their behavior. And so we had a lot of talking, and no talking about right or wrong. And that way I just wanted to get behind their surface and get behind their wall they built up, because they didn't trust me. And I was a little bit skeptical about them. Anyway, after all these weeks and talks, I told them about my childhood, about how I grew up and all the mistakes I did as a teenager. They looked at me. Could you be a teacher when you have done all this? Yeah, you see, I'm here. So we started to open up, and in a way, we started to build trust to each other. After another 4 weeks, they came to me. One of them came to me and with my car keys in his hands. I parked my car outside the school building and forgot one morning to take out the car keys. And this was in the prison where the young people were. So he came with the car keys. I said, whoa. Frederick, he said, and dropped it on my desk. You better take your car keys with you when you park your car. Otherwise, your car won't be there in a couple of hours. Thank you, I said, of course. And I just asked him, why didn't you take the car and the keys on the car and drove away? Just you could drive out in freedom. No, Frederick. I don't do that to you. I don't do that to you. You are a good man. Okay, then a week later, I came to me and said, there is a football game going on in Gothenburg. It's about 200 kilometers from where we were. And they said we would like to go there because that's the game of the year in Sweden. And there's supposed to be 50,000 people there. I said, yeah, that would be nice, but you know, you are in the closed section, and no one is allowed to go outside this closed section in the period where you are there, except coming to school. But going to Gothenburg to this football game isn't going to school. Well, they asked me to go to the prison warden and ask him if it was possible. I said, I will do that. And I went there, and he was skeptical because that wasn't the rules of the prison. But he said, I will think about it. I will talk to those staff in this closed section and see what they say. And after 2 days, he came to me and said, Frederick, the staff in this section, they say definitely no, because that's not their rules. But I think maybe it's a good thing for those guys if we show them trust. We show them much mistrust, but this is a way to show them trust. So if you want to do this, if you take the responsibility, I thought, yeah, I will. And you will have them back here. I will, I said, I trust them. So next day the kids came again and we told about it, and they were happy. Wow, they said, yes. There's just one clue, I said, one hook. If you don't come back with me from Gothenburg, I will be the one who will take all responsibility, and maybe they will kick me out. So I trust you, you trust me, we build trust, and you come with me back home. Yes, of course. So we went off and we parked the bus about a couple of 100 meters from the stadium, and I asked them if they wanted their tickets. No, you can take them. We follow you, and then we walk into the game. And during the whole game, and even in half-time and afterwards, because I said, you can go where you want, we meet at the bus at 9 o'clock in the evening. They just stayed in my sight, so to say. They don't left me, because that was their security, their trust on me, and they would show me trust not to go too far away from me, like a leading dog like that I was at. And on the way home, I asked them, why didn't you use the opportunity to just walk around and meet other people? And now they said, if we had done that, we wouldn't be sure that we would have come with you home. We wanted really to show you that trust and build our relationship, so we went with you back. So I was so happy about that, because in my heart, or in my brain, I didn't really believe they would come back. And the next day, of course, everyone was surprised. No one except the warden and myself had believed that those 4 guys who were heavy criminals in one way should come back with me from this game. So that was a good way of showing how you build trust.
Trust has been a part of every culture and every school Frederick's been in. And his choice of the element of trust to be a part of his culture comes from the lived inward journey based on the story he just told. As my friend and partner John Edwards and I travel the world observing schools that really do good work, really deliver what the community, the staff, and the principals want for their children, we've identified many elements of culture. Here's a long list of those elements that we've observed in schools. You don't see all of them in the same school, but you see some of these elements of culture in every great school that's doing really great work. The question would be, as a leader who's responsible for building the culture and taking care of it, which elements of culture are you using to deliberately take action to build and take care of in your school or in any of your roles in leadership that you might have? What elements of culture are you using? Have a chat about that for a minute. What elements would I see if I came into your school? I'm just going to finish. Thank you. Thank you. You need to know who you are. Leadership challenge number one. Another leadership challenge is to take the responsibility, the huge responsibility of being the culture builder and caretaker. That means you have to acknowledge what elements of culture you're using to build your culture that's being lived out. A third leadership challenge that every leader has who works in education around the world at the school level is the challenge of creating alignment, to have everybody in the school going in the same direction at the same time. We live in a crazy world of mandates. We live in a crazy world of restrictions. Many people have talked about that throughout the week. I call it, we're destroying teachers around the world due to initiative fatigue. In my own state of Colorado, back in the United States, in the last 10 years, today, there are 40% less people going into teaching than did go into teaching 10 years ago. We're driving the profession into oblivion because we throw one mandate, one restriction after another at wonderful people and heap all the blame on them as well. When you go into some schools and you go into the staff room, all you hear is whinging and moaning about this. Oh, they did it to us again. Oh, we got another curriculum. Oh, we got another mandate. Whinge, moan, whine, groan. You walk out of the staff room to get some breath of fresh air. 5 years later, you go back in that same school, go into the staff room, whinge, moan, groan. They did it to us again. They did it to us again. Another new curriculum, another new mandate, another new government. Woe is us, woe is us, woe is us. That pattern of behavior is unhealthy, very, very unhealthy. I use the analogy of a baby floating in a mother's womb for 9 months in this nice, quiet, soft liquid. And the baby's born. You do not hear the baby whinging and moaning about the restrictions of gravity. And gravity is very restrictive. What babies do is they fight to crawl, then they fight to stand up, then they start walking, then they start running. There's no whinging and moaning. No whinging and moaning. In place of whinging and moaning about the restrictions and the mandates, all that does is create a frame for you and your school to work within. Accept the frame, and then start to build a vision of a school you have for yourself within that frame. Shared vision has always been my tool to create alignment. I discovered in my first large American high school that I was principal. I had 2,400 students, 180 staff, and I had to get out of the corridors because I was afraid I'd get run over and killed. I had my math department running this way, my science department going different. My art department was going that way. My English department was somewhere in outer space. It was chaos. I always wondered, there were magnificent teachers in that school, magnificent teachers, but we weren't getting the best out of ourselves. I wondered what would happen if we took all that staff. Matter of fact, Saturday back in America is July 4th. It's Fireworks Day. That's the day we celebrate getting the Brits out of our hair. Back in 1776. You know what fireworks are in Spain? The skyrockets going up in the sky. Well, I thought, what if I take this whole staff put duct tape around them. All those individual skyrockets, put duct tape around them, push them in the same direction, point them in the same direction, light the fuse. Whoosh! What energy we could create if we were aligned, all going in the same direction together. The shared vision is the tool to do that. But you need to be careful because shared vision has not become a popular word around the world. Some people think a shared vision is when the leadership team from the school goes away for a weekend to a mountaintop, writes the vision, and comes back on Monday and says, "Here's your shared vision." And you're saying, "I didn't have anything to do with that. Not mine. Might be yours, but it's not mine." And it's not a shared vision when the principal goes away to the same resort on a weekend, writes the vision by himself, comes back, hands the vision out to everybody, and says, "Hey, give me a little feedback and input on this vision before I write it again." A shared vision comes when every single voice is heard to create the vision. Every single voice is heard and valued with equity. We can draw a shared vision out of anyone and ensure their voice is heard fairly and consistently and with consensus. I discovered consensus 49 years ago. It was the day after I got married. It was the day I woke up and realized I can never have my own way ever again. The best that could happen is my wife and I together could make better decisions than either one of us could do by ourselves. That's consensus. It's that kind of consensus that creates alignment. And people say, "Well, how do you hear every voice? How do you make sure every voice is?" It's doable. Several years ago, I was working with an aged care company in Adelaide, South Australia. They had 4,000 employees, and every one of those voices were heard to put a shared vision together. It wasn't easy, but they made sure every single voice was heard. Interesting thing happened in regards to how that vision was a rocket that whooshed them into the sky together. A sentence in their vision went, "Everyone at elder care will be treated, whether they're a resident, a staff member, or someone who's a resident and there is a family member of them, everyone at elder care will be treated like they're a member of a family." That was their aligning sentence in the vision. 2 or 3 months after they made the vision, in one residence, a couple lived. The man was aging normally. He was in his 90s, very clear-headed, enjoyed interacting with all the other residents, enjoyed his meals in a dining room with everybody. His wife, on the other hand, was suffering from severe dementia. She was in the lockdown dementia unit of the resident. One night at dinner time, the man collapsed on the floor of the dining room. Everyone thought he was going to die. The staff gathered around the man, chaotically trying to figure out what to do. What do we need to do to try to help this man? One of the staff members said, "Should we go get his wife?" And most everybody else said, no, don't go get her. That's just going to add to the chaos. It's going to make things worse for us. Don't get her. Then some other staff members said, Would you want your partner with you when you were dying? All at once, you heard the people say, "Go get the wife." They went to the lockdown dementia unit, brought the wife down to the dining hall. She saw her husband on the floor. She went over to him, kneeled down, came out of dementia, and talked to him in the same loving way she had always talked to him. And he responded. He responded. At that elder care facility, there's a new system and structure in place. Anytime there's a couple living in that residence, if one of them is ill or in an emergency, you go get the partner. Because that's what you would do if you were a member of a family. They used a shared vision to align themselves like a rocket that created humongous change throughout the organization. Give you a couple minutes to talk before we come to a conclusion. Give you a couple minutes to talk about what do you use as a leader to make sure people are lined up like one rocket ship, ready to create massive energy to improve teaching and learning in the same direction. Have a chat about that for a couple minutes.
The frame picture we don't use. No.
We go to 325, don't we?
325, yes. Let's show them and it'll be fine. They'll be fine. Show them the last.
Well, you talk about it.
What
The frame.
the frame?
Yeah, you talk about the frame for 5 minutes and then.
Okay.
Do you think that makes sense now?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, good. Then we're not.
Because we should have done it before.
No, we're not going to do that.
But we can't.
Joel Barker is an American futurist, and I've always loved his quotes about the power of vision. Vision without action is merely a dream. Action without vision is just passing the time. Vision with action can change the world. Can change the world. Visions are tools that have you all go lined up in the same direction, and they're also a tool to help staff hold themselves responsible and accountable to move the school toward that vision. I had large school, 180 staff. Every May, I sit down for a half hour with every staff member. Took me the whole month in a school that size. I called these stewardship conferences. The staff would be given ahead of time, ahead of the conference. They'd be given the action plan for the next actions we were going to take to move our vision forward. They were asked to think about, what are you going to be accountable for? What are you going to do to help us move the vision forward? And then they would come in and meet with me. First half of the conference would go like this. Tell me what you're going to do to take action to move our vision forward. Tell me what you're going to do. And I would question them, and I would pull out of them. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. When I was very, very clear on what they would do to be responsible for moving us forward, the second half of the meeting went like this. All right, now I'm very clear about what you're going to do. I need to know what you need from me, what you need from us to be able to do what you said you're going to do. Because we need to be partners in this. It can't be one way. What do you need from me, or what you need from us, so we can be sure you're able to do what you say you're going to do? And they would tell me. They would tell me. At the end of the half hour, I would look at them and I would say, all right, let me see if I have this right. You're going to do this, 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 and this. Am I right? Yep, you got it clear. I said, all right, and I'm going to do this, 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 and I'm going to get this person to do this to support you. Did I get that right? Yes. I'd stand up, I'd shake their hands, and I'd say, thank you so much for being a partner and moving our shared vision forward in a powerful and aligned way. And then we'd get done and leave, and what I'd expect to happen is to see that person doing exactly what he said he would do. So if something would happen along the way, a little glitch would come up, and I didn't see that person doing what he said he would do, go up to him, say, hey, for some reason I don't see you doing what you said you would do. Help me understand. Is it because of me? Is it because I didn't do what I said I would do? But we need to get back on track. The shared vision was the alignment tool. And to support that alignment tool, to make sure the actions took place, the conversations one-on-one with every staff member, to help them hold themselves responsible, not me holding them responsible. Helping them hold them responsible gave us a massive force of power and energy to move the school forward. Thank you for your time. Have a great end of the conference.